Now, we could talk a lot about the French and Indian War and all the things that happened in there. It's a whole war. In fact, it's a whole lesson in and of itself. But we're not going to do that. The purpose of this lesson is to talk about how things influenced the revolution. So there's a couple big things that you need to know about the French and Indian War and how it affected the revolution. Now, the French and Indian War was fought between Britain, Great Britain. They were fighting against the French and the Indians, hence the French and Indian War. Now, the French people, they had moved up into the north, the Canadian area, and they were moving down inland in America, away from the coast. That was all of their land, and we'll have maps there so you can see what these are. But that was their land. Now, they were a little bit concerned because America was growing, the colonies were growing, and they were growing into the French areas. So the French weren't very happy with that, and they wanted to defend their land. Well, that started the war, and it was fought between those, the British people that were fighting to, keep their settlements that they had there, and the French people who were saying, hey, that's our land, you can't be moving so far away from the ocean. You have to stay where your land is. Now, one of the big things that you want to remember about this is where George Washington gained a lot of his experience. George Washington fought in the French and Indian War for the British. That's kind of funny if you didn't realize that or know that before, that he was actually a British army leader before he was an American army leader. So he fought in the French and Indian War and gained lots of experience about what it takes to be a general and what it takes to be a leader and what it takes to win a war. So that's one of the first things you want to remember. The French and Indian War is a little part of a whole big war that was going on called the 7 Years' War. It was being fought in Europe and in America. So the second thing you really want to remember is that the French and Indian War is a part of the 7 Years' War that was being fought all over between lots of different countries. It was kind of a small version of a world war going on at this time that Britain was very involved in. Now, the third and probably the most important that you need to remember is that wars are expensive. And when the British people fought this war in America, it cost them a lot of money, and it put Britain in a lot of debt. They had to borrow a lot of money to fight this war. Now, when the war was over, they still had all of this debt. Now, the British people thought, well, how do we pay off this debt? Well, this is when they started taxing the Americans, because according to what they thought, they said, hey, we fought this war for you, Americans. We fought this to protect you. We fought this on your behalf. You should help pay for it. So they started to tax the Americans to pay for the war debt. And this really did not make the colonists happy at all. In fact, this is one of the big things that really started that move towards the revolution. So one of the biggest things that the French and Indian War did was put Britain in debt, forced them to tax the Americans, which made the Americans not like the British, and it began the rebellion that led to the revolution.